All right, I got to be honest. I'm a little hot. I'm a little frustrated. And Bleacher Report just came out with their 2024 win predictions. And what they said for the Cleveland Browns just makes no sense. And as you know on this channel, we're Lions fans, but we love talking about teams that the NFL kind of ignores, the national media ignores. And the Cleveland Browns are one of them. We resonate with Browns fans. And I feel like right now the Lions are getting all the love from the national media. And I want to say, what about the Browns? Like, they were 11-6 last year. They made it to the playoffs, and then finally everything came back down to earth. Like, yeah, you had a 39-year-old starting at quarterback. You were older than anticipated, but, like, your team was a good team. So when I looked at the record prediction by Bleacher Report, I got frustrated. And then when I looked at the reasoning, I got even more frustrated. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about an awesome opportunity for one of the Browns coaches being put into the accelerator program. We'll kind of go through that. We'll talk about that and go from there. But let's just sit here and read through what they said. You can, if you saw it, you saw it. But your record last year was 11-6. And then, of course, the first line, lazy writing, like everything else, is the Cleveland Browns should have concerns about starting quarterback Deshaun Watson, who has yet to rediscover his Pro Bowl form since they acquired him from the Houston Texans. You don't need him to be a Pro Bowler. I'm sorry. You don't need him to go out there, throw for 4,700 yards, run for another 500, and just be remarkable. All right? Watson's thrown for 14 touchdowns, 9 picks, while completing 60% of his passes. On top of that, he missed 11 games because of a shoulder injury. Here's what it says. With Watson under center, Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski has operated a run-heavy offense featuring star tailback Nick Chubb, who tore his ACL in Week 2 last year. Stefanski didn't dial up an aggressive passing attack until Joe Flacco filled in for Watson late last season and led the Browns to the playoffs. You forget all the DTR games? Did you forget bringing in guys from the XFL to start at quarterback? It wasn't just Watson. Says the Browns stingy. Stingy defense? Are you kidding me right now? Did you watch a Cleveland Browns game? Whoever wrote this. Bleacher Report staff. Did you watch a game? Stingy? Run heavy under Watson? This isn't a stingy defense. This is a great defense. This was arguably the best defense in the NFL last year. Says their stingy defense will keep them in most games, but one has to wonder why Watson wasn't able to sling the ball around when healthy like Flacco did fresh off the couch. Then they go on to say Cleveland acquired wideout Jerry Jeudy from the Broncos and signed him to a new deal. But Stefanski isn't getting the most out of Watson, so the Browns may not be using their money wisely. Can I also say something else about the Cleveland Browns last year? They had no starting tackles. You want to know why they weren't just flinging the ball around with Watson in the first 6 weeks of the year? Because they had no starting tackles. They were sending them out to die if they did that. Just sling the ball all over the place. Then when they get Flacco, they have no option. All right, let's sling it. What else are we going to do? They can't just be a run-first team with no Nick Chubb and a quarterback who has zero running threat. Then they go on to say, oh, by the way, Cleveland has an 8-4 record when Watson starts. So naturally, this is the most angry Browns video I've ever done. All right, so naturally, when they're 8-4 when Watson starts, it's a good record, by the way. They have a phenomenal defense that will keep them in games. They go out and get Watson even more help at the wide receiver position. Naturally getting your starting quarterback back. Naturally getting more talented at the wide receiver position. Getting back your starting tackles from injury. Keeping the defense intact and in many ways improving this roster overall somehow with the salary cap the way it was for this team. I don't know how Andrew Berry found a way to do it. We'll find out in the future how much he's being like the Saints. But somehow with all this, Bleacher Report and all their wisdom said their next record is going to be 8-9. What in the world are you talking about? 10-5 is the starting point. And then you have to decide if they're going 11-6 or 12-5 off of that. I don't understand it. Now, if you wanted to make different arguments to saying this Browns team is not going to have as good of a record because of the competition that they're playing, if you want to talk about the strength of the AFC North and talk about 2 games against the Bengals, who they own, all right, by the way, but with a healthy Joe Burrow, if you want to talk about the Steelers will be better than they were last year because they might at least have competency at the quarterback position. If you want to talk about the Ravens, that's an argument that you could make, that you have 5 or 6 games against those teams. You can make that argument, but don't sit here and give me this crap about how they're not that good with Deshaun Watson when they're 8-4 with him. Let's not act like we need Deshaun Watson to be the all-pro he was in Houston. He had to be an all-pro in Houston because that's what Houston needed at the time. They had a pretty good defense, but not this Browns defense. He doesn't have to be that here. He just has to be good enough. And I think that's part of the problem that I just see. And that's why we do this channel, because we want to do things that teams that are disrespected or ignored by the national media, because when you get articles written about your team from the national media that never actually watch your team or don't understand what's going on, then all of a sudden you're like, all right, I get it now. All right, more good news coming out of Cleveland. Actual good news. The Coach Accelerator program is aimed at strengthening the pipeline of diverse coaching candidates. And your cornerbacks coach, Brandon Lynch, is taking part of this program in spring meetings, which is pretty cool. He was interviewed last year for a defensive coordinator job, and he's been a guy who's been on the rise. He was a player. He won the Grey Cup in the Canadian Football League. He was on a Colts team that won the Super Bowl, and he's been on the Browns coaching staff since 2020, and was kept on board when Schwartz took over as defensive coordinator. A lot of times that marks a really good coach when you stay on board after a new defensive coordinator comes in. So that's what we're looking at here. I'm trying to be excited about it, but mostly I'm just kind of frustrated about the 8-9 thing. I just show some love. This team got better. Let's not act like this team would be better off with Joe Flacco as its starting quarterback for 17 games. It's just not. They have more talent. Their offensive line's more intact. Life's going to be good. Life's going to be good. All right. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.